Sweet Talk is a weekly 20-minute podcast brought to you by the Continuing Education Workforce Training Division of Idaho State University's College of Technology. This podcast is part of our continuing outreach efforts, and the format is conversation. We're having conversations with businesses, professionals, entrepreneurs, community agencies, and in all cases, difference makers. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SoundCloud. So subscribe today. Take 20 minutes and hear from people living in your community who are making a difference in your community. It's time to get started with Sweet Talk. Hello, everyone. This is Jason Batalden I'm the Assistant Director here at Continuing Education Workforce Training. Paul, you're on the show today, as pretty much always.
Well, I had that bout for that one episode, but I'm glad to be here. How are you doing today, Jason?
You know what? I'm doing good. Can I just say, I love this time of year in Eastern Idaho. I feel like I survive like 9 or 10 months of really weird weather for this mid-September to late October timeframe. I don't know what it is. I mean, this is the one time of the year to be in Southeast Idaho.
Man, it's great. Yeah, the weather's great, but I'm a New England boy.
Oh, got it.
And fall in New England is a cliche for a reason.
I know, and I have no idea. I've never been in the fall in New England in the fall, so I have no point of reference. I'm just telling you, compared to the other 10 months of weather in Southeast Idaho, these are my two favorite months.
Oh man, the nice crisp, cool air. Yeah. It's so nice to be able to walk outside and not have that heat blaring on you. It is wonderful. I mean, and less wildfires, and so that air's a little easier to breathe in than it has been for most of the summer here.
All right, I'm going to have you convinced on my side here by the time we get into this podcast. Fine. You're going to be on my side. Yeah. Look, hey, we got to throw out some plugs here, Paul. We have finished the fifth and final episode in the series, a podcast about
podcasting by podcasters.
Yeah. We love that title when we came up with it, but man, that thing has been the hardest thing to say for the last 3 or 4 months. I don't know why I can't get it out. But anyway, we've got 5 episodes up. I think they're excellent resource if you're interested in starting a podcast, whether a personal podcast, whether you're a business and you're thinking maybe this might be a new platform to talk about what you do or how you do it, or even any other reason that you would like to start a podcast. I think you definitely want to check this out. It's on our website and all that information. It's right here on Sweet Talk, and it's posted in all our usual places on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and we have the video portions up on YouTube. So please be sure to check those out.
Yes, please. And also, hey, write us an email. We'd love to hear from you at cetrain@isu.edu.
That's right. Give us some feedback. Let us know if you put our ideas to work and they failed miserably. Who knows? Maybe that's how it is. Paul, we have an exciting guest today, and I can tell you right now from our pre-show conversation, that this 20 minutes is going to come and bite us. It is because we're gonna go to town for sure on this. But with that being said, I give the official welcome John Young, and with the welcome, we know the 20 minutes has started. So introduce yourself to our Sweet Talk audience.
Well, it's great to be with you guys. Happy to be part of a podcast that looks and sounds this good.
Oh, thank you.
So my name is John Young. I'm the video lecturer now at the ISU Department of Communication, Media, and Persuasion. And I'm a full-time employee. Half of my contract is the classroom teaching. The other half is I'm also the director of sports broadcasting. So I lead a crew primarily of students, although I do have some more professional or legacy people with more experience to help me train those students. And we produce 60 to 70 live broadcasts of ISU varsity athletics events each year for the World Wide Web. And the big excitement now is we are on ESPN Plus this year. So we are working with some of the biggest brands in the business, making ISU look great to the world. Right so on. Our platform is ESPN Plus. We work with Disney Master Control, every time we do a broadcast. That's just new this year. We've been on other streaming services in the past, Pluto TV the last 3 years, but the Big Sky Conference has sold its broadcasting rights now to ESPN and Disney. And so we're part of that family now, the whole university. And I get the opportunity as a media professional to be, a gatekeeper and making sure that those content pieces are seen and make us look good.
Wow.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Both Paul and I are jumping on here with questions. I'm watching Paul on the screen here, and I'm like, oh, Paul's got questions, and so do I. So Paul, jump off here and get us started. There's some really neat things we want to talk about today, but I'll let you go first.
I'm the video instruction manager for our department, John. So I'm the video guy here, and to be perfectly honest with you, I'm self-taught. When I started here years ago, they kind of sat me in front of a computer and said, edit, and walked away. And then from there, I
not
always
tape to tape, not deck to deck.
No. I've seen that in college. I saw that. I was part of that, but no. I just kind of always have technical questions. I have, so when you go out, obviously you must be using a TriCaster when you're broadcasting.
Yes.
And how many cameras do you have set up when you're doing a sporting event?
So it varies by the sport. We do as few as 2 of basically a wide or a game camera is the ESPN terminology. Covers most of the action. And then we use a hero cam or a tight cam to get, more emotion, individual player profiles, cutaways of the crowds, things like that. So for volleyball, say, or basketball, we'll have those 2 cameras right in front of the production area at the top of Reed Gym. We're about center court. And so I've got one safety camera that's wide covering everything. And then I've got a more skilled operator on the tight camera. And we're talking on headsets, and I'll say, get that little kid dancing in the crowd, or, get the hero shot of the coach, yelling at the ref. So they have more flexibility in what they're covering as opposed to the game cam, which is really meant to be the primary action camera. And then we have a wireless system, and we put a camera down on the floor, and that's kind of optional. So the 2 cameras, the wide and tight high cameras, are mandatory. But the floor camera, if we have the personnel, we like to have that as a third angle. So we have volleyball, soccer, basketball that are all basically that setup, two primary cameras and then a floor camera. We go to football, we expand out to 4 and 5 cameras. We add a third fixed camera in the end zone. So we've got 2 high, 1 in the low end zone, wireless camera roaming the sideline. And then occasionally we've wired Holt to have we can put a camera all the way over in the far corner looking down the far sideline. Right on.
Okay.
One of the things that's really interesting, if I can just keep going a little bit, is, not only are we broadcasting for the online audience, and our numbers get into 5 figures. We get 20, 30,000 people watching broadcasts, sometimes as much as 100,000 if it's a big football game. And that was prior to ESPN. Just for an example, last year, the women's basketball team was very strong. Pluto TV was able to track, and we were getting 10 to 12,000 people per game.
Nice.
Which is extraordinary, right? You think it may seem mostly friends and family are watching, but no, this digital media is so available that people all over the world, were watching women's basketball and picking up our broadcast. So that's exciting. And one of the things we have to do, though, is not only serve that audience, but my equipment, my personnel are also part of the Big Sky replay team. So we're sort of official documentarians, not for broadcast, but at the same time providing, independent 3 or 4 streams of video for the Big Sky replay officials.
Right.
They record everything in their own dedicated system. And, not only to, I think, look at did that play, did the player step on a line, or did they get the shot off in time, things that they review. But I think, with all the concussion protocols and concerns over liability, my take has been that when they brought in Replay and said, you must work with Replay and provide dedicated lines to this recording system, you know, the conferences want a record of everything that happens on these playing courts in case there's any injury pushback. So when I realized that was going on, that this is more than just entertainment. This is now, you know, has some legal ramifications, I think. Suddenly the weight of what we do became even more apparent. And so then we do other things. I provide the video to the big board in Holt, and I provide video to the hallway cameras. They built a network hallway TV. So in Holt, if you go to the concession stand and you're waiting in line, there's 2 or 3 TVs showing our broadcast up in the hallway. And so especially when we're doing football, we're sort of the center of the spider web, where we're feeding one master out to ESPN Plus. We're feeding another master out to Big Sky Replay. We're feeding the hallways. We're feeding the big boards. And any one of those, as you guys know, can go wrong.
Yeah, at any given time.
I mean,
crazy in the hub.
Oh yeah. I mean, when you're doing video, you know, part of it's just, when I'm doing any sort of video broadcasting, because we do our smaller events and we have a TriCaster in our department. So, and you go and it's just, you start up, you set up and you just go, I just want it to work. Because if it stops working, that's all they remember is it stopped working.
That's right.
They don't remember everything was working fine to a certain point. They just know, hey, this didn't go out.
Right.
And, you know, and especially you talked about wireless. Oh man, that's creates such anxiety in me on the wall because we do use a wireless camera in our system and just go, yeah, if that wireless goes out, you know, now we got black going out. And that's the one thing. You never want black going out.
Right. Right. Hey, John, I obviously just, you know, having that conversation about the technical side of it, but I guess one of the thoughts that had came to my mind was, so you've been in this business, you've seen a lot of how technology has probably changed the business of, you know, video production and how that works. I mean, you know, from tape to computers to, you know, wireless and on up. Kind of the other half of your job as a video lecturer and instructor, I suppose that provides a pretty interesting perspective in your point when you're talking to students. You can kind of talk to a little bit about the history and have experienced and been through that change. I'm assuming that you have that neat, unique perspective that you can bring to the table.
Absolutely. I started, you know, in professional video in 87, 88, 89. Paul, we referenced, it was tape to tape with no computers involved. I started at KPVI Channel 6 in my first, you know, full-time job as a media professional. And yeah, we used pretty archaic equipment, even for that era, right? You know, small market stuff was 10 years old by the time I got to be using it. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, we've watched and I've experienced the digital transition, and it's jaw dropping, really. And if I want the kids to glaze over in my lecture, all I got to do is start talking about the old days.
Yeah, the old days.
So you know, they can't relate. It has no relevance anymore. I mean, there's no value really in spending much time explaining them the vagaries of videotape.
Yeah. So I remember working in a cable station back in the day during my college, and they just had these big giant commercial beta machines.
Right.
And then they had the wheel editors.
Right.
And you talk to that and people go, well, no, it's a tape and tape and tape and tape. You had like a dozen tapes for like a 5-hour thing. And they go, but now it's like, it's got on this card.
Yeah. And, you know, one of the things that I miss about tape is the integrity of the source media. You know, you'd record a tape, you'd put it on a shelf, and it was always there. And with digital files, you can lose them. They can get corrupted. You know, it's a lot easier to sort of lose track of a little card if that's your source file. But I end up taking everything off the cards that we record in the cameras and putting it on a hard drive somewhere, and then making multiple backups, because just digital files get lost. And, you know, I've got a whole library of personal digital videotape, you know, that it was shot 20 years ago when digital cameras first came out and they still used mini DB tape. and I know where it is.
Yeah.
I'm not wondering which hard drive, that I bought 10 years ago that I no longer, have
Right.
where it is. So
Yeah, I've got a desk drawer of like 7 external hard drives that I just, because I'm purging our redundant server drive like every 3 months, and you just have to put them on a hard drive, and you put them on two hard drives.
right.
Two hard drives,
Right.
because I heard the expression, one is none, two is one, because you should always have a backup of a backup.
Right.
Well, I really like that. And I would agree. I would never want just one digital copy of critical media, because if that drive decides to go belly up, it's gone.
It's gone. It's gone. So, when I applied for this job back in the day, John, they made you fill out an essay for when you applied, basically a bunch of questions about, your history and how to do the video stuff. And I was filling out this essay, and they still talked about tape in these essay questions that they provided. They still talked about tape. So I turned it around, and I basically started writing this thing about, no, it's all about digital management, digital data management. And they came back, oh yeah, you have the job.
Right. Right.
Well, it's nice to be on the leading edge, right?
Yeah,
right.
It's all relative.
Exactly, because because I like these. This is arcane.
That's right.
Because it seems like they, and I think it's funny because even though we've gone digital for like almost 10 years, maybe even 15 years now, you still use the term tape, film, and it still comes back into our vocabulary when we talk about what we're doing.
This has sort of different meanings. Yes.
Yeah.
I just had that discussion with I'm teaching narrative video this fall, and I had to open, the opening week with this discussion of, look, I'm going to use the term cinema, video, filmmaking, storytelling, but it's all basically digital video.
Yeah.
But it's not the old video. It's not, Jeopardy studio look, live to tape. It's these new cameras that are shooting video are very film centric, if you will, in terms of the output and the chip size. And so we're in this world that's constantly evolving and changing, and the old terms, the old technology, you're right, we still use them, but they really designate and mean something different. So when I talk about video production now, I want the kids, and they don't know anything different, but I need audiences and students to understand that we're not limiting just to sort of old school technologies. We're using modern cameras that imitate what film cameras used to be the only thing they could do. Now the digital video cameras are basically, we're doing cinema and filmmaking.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, the cameras nowadays are just unbelievable. I mean, yeah.
Well, and that, I think this conversation also kind of lends itself now is, you've been in this, started with the tape to tape, and then now into the digital, and how the digital has changed just how you even store your source material, let alone how you produce it, edit it, how you publish it. But then, let's take this just a step farther. This was, we kind of talked about this a little bit earlier, pre-show, was now the introduction of podcast, right? Now the introduction of podcasting and how that affects, I don't know if that falls into it has to fall into the umbrella of video, production to a certain degree, doesn't it? Even though it's primarily a sound only platform.
Paul, you want to start with that, or should I?
Well, I'll just chime in here. The equipment and all the equipment that's available nowadays makes it more accessible to everybody to do some sort of video production nowadays. And in a lot of cases, there are a lot of podcasts that, even though podcasting started out as an audio medium, you see a lot of podcasters that have now integrated that video component to their podcast as well, because again, video production is a lot more accessible nowadays.
And here we are, using video in a fairly simple form. The big difference between this and say a traditional newscast visually is that we're not running any B-roll. So we're having a discussion and we don't have the fancy graphics, right? We could be ESPN or Fox News right now, and each of us could be in our own little box with titles and, scrolling and all of that. But otherwise we're doing the same thing. We got 3 distinct video cameras sending 3 distinct video sources to the final output. And looks great, by the way. But we're not using any external video. And why not? Well, it's a lot of work in the background, right? To have video assets, we would need at this point to have figured out our discussion ahead of time, produced, edited, meaningful video, captured it somehow, acquired it somehow, edited it, and have it queued up. And then you guys would either in post-production lay it in over the conversation, or in a live studio environment, we'd have a director and a tape operator, or tape operator, video server operator serving it live. And those are some of the things that I'm able to teach in the Idaho Public Television studio, where we, I ask my students I call it studio content or studio-based content production now. It used to be TV news. That's an evolution. But studio-based content is that sort of live production control room delivery of media, where the students are on the desk, anchoring in front of the camera, reading the teleprompter. They've written their scripts, but they've also prepared the video assets, and we serve those live on demand from the control room. And so I can teach the students how to produce 5 or 10 minutes of studio-based content. And the difference between what we're doing and that is all that work that has to go into preparing the visual media before you jump into the studio live.
You're absolutely right, because in a lot of cases, to make it that more finished, polished look, you need to have that stuff ahead of time. So you need to know what your content's going to be, so that you can prepare that. And we've streamed a lot of stuff, and it's, if I know ahead of time, then I can create lower thirds ahead of time, have them prepped, have them installed into the TriCaster. I guess in the studio, you would put that in the studio system, and so that you have them ready. So but right now we're doing this on the fly, but it does look great though.
Well, and I think just going on and flipping almost our conversation to the other side of the coin, this format seems to be the more preferred choice on which people want to consume their content. It seems like the preference is not so much anymore, or the necessity for that polished work isn't as essential to get the audience as maybe it once had been.
I would agree completely, Jason. I think, podcasting has created a new paradigm, where we used to think, no one would watch a TV newscast if it was just the 2 anchors. Without the video from the field. If I'm telling you about the car wreck on the interstate, the whole value of TV news was being able to show you that.
Right.
Podcasting has changed that. And what's been astounding to me, just because I guess my bias of being so visually driven, is how successful podcasts are. My sons are 23 and 19. And, they listen to podcasts, and they tell me about the successful audience building that's going on with, say, Joe Rogan, and millions of people listening. And yet, technically, they're really not doing anything different than we are right here.
No. Oh,
20 minutes.
20 minutes. So I just want to bring up one last thing. We went back to that, what I said before about video being more accessible to everyone, and so many people now create content. The one thing that I still don't know how to take this is YouTube has made the jump cut acceptable.
Yes. And you have to be at least over 40 to understand what that means. No jump cuts.
No jump. I watched a YouTube video, and this is some 20-something on, and it's like jump. And I go, when did this become acceptable? I don't know.
Right. How did this become the new standard? Who knows?
Well, we're swimming in different waters, and I think it's very important that we adapt. right? Because it's not our medium anymore. It's the kids coming up. And I love what you guys are doing. This is adapting to the new environment. And I certainly hope we can work together and talk some more in this fashion. I think, podcasting is something that the young people should be taught how to do, even if it's sort of simpler than, say, a TV newscast. There's a lot of similarities. And we have the studios and we have the knowledge with this team. And I'd like to see the school really move in that direction and get students excited about being on the air, right? This is the new way to be on the air.
Well, it also allows them to be more personable with their content, because then they can create something that is really from themselves. When you're in the old days, when you went to video production classes and so forth, you were taught to be part of a team, and then you were, in many cases, you were going to output maybe news or some other broadcasting medium that was part of a team. With podcasting, you're actually really, I can do this myself. I can put myself out there and create content that totally reflects my personality and who I am.
And Jason, I know we got to wrap this up, but let me just weigh in quickly on that. So the sports broadcasting, the crew work that I do, which by the way is a paid position, the students get paid about $10 an hour, come and learn real world live sports broadcasting. I mean, it's a tremendous opportunity. I'd recommend to anyone. That is that team environment. In my classes, the students really do individual work. So they do get to learn how to express their own artistic vision, whether it's in a narrative video setting or, the intro or the studio or corporate video. It's not, I don't necessarily do that group work thing where you only play one role, because I want these kids to understand it is an independent producer's world now. You have to be able to take it from concept to delivery by yourself.
Yep. And the risk that involves, I think we can't ignore that either, right? Because when you do that individual piece, you put it out there, and you have to be willing to realize that maybe not only 3 other people on the entire planet have the same interest or that you just put out. And so that's kind of a neat little component to this podcasting experience, is there is the risk is more shouldered by you, so to speak, or at least that's my perspective on this thing. So
right.
All right, Paul, we do got to shut this down, or we're going to have to create a part 2 of this.
I could be here for another hour.
I would come back anytime, guys.
Well,
please,
just to be candid, John, I'm like, all right, we need to set up, I know you're a busy man, but we just need to come and sit down and chat with you and refine and learn some more how we can do this and benefit from this. And so thank you for coming on the show today. Hey, with that being said, John, let's say we've got someone they're really interested and they're wanting, hey, maybe I want to get some more formal education on this medium and how to work in this field. Is it okay if they reach out to you? Do you have an email address they can contact you at?
Absolutely. And it's the standard, 4x4 ISU email. So if you use the old version, well, I think we're actually John Young at isu.edu.
Yep. JOHN. Young in the traditional spelling way at isu.edu. And Paul, that tells us that's a good time for us to remind people that they can email us at cetrain@isu.edu. They can check out our website for sure, and it's the same thing, CEtrain. And again, that's cetrain.isu.edu. And finally, Paul, let's go old school if they want to call us.
Yeah, if they want to call us, they can call us at 208-282-3372.
Right on. John, this was a fantastic conversation. I think if I had to title it, and I probably won't title it this way, but we just scratched the surface. That's the only way I could even think of this conversation at this point. So thank you so much.
I can geek out on this stuff like all day long.
And I don't think we're alone by any means. There's more producers than ever. And people have different experiences. They get in, they decide, it's a lot more work than I thought. But other people get the potential here.
Oh, yeah. I mean, when you create something and it's something that you're proud of, there's no greater feeling.
Right on. All right. Thanks, John. Thank you.
Let's talk some more.
Thank you so much, John.
Take care, guys. Thank you.